Heidi.
There he is. Welcome.
Good evening, and welcome to this Tuesday, June 9th, 2020 regular scheduled meeting of the Baraboo Common Council. This telecommunicated meeting originates from the council chambers at 101 South Boulevard in Baraboo. Public participation is encouraged in this meeting. If you have called in on the telephone and would like to make a comment, you will need to press *6 to unmute your phone when called upon by the presiding officer. The mayor will invite comment later in the meeting. This meeting is now called to order by Mayor Mike Paul.
Call the Baraboo Common Council meeting to order. We'll have the roll call followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Brenda, please take the roll.
Wiedekin.
Here.
Kolb.
Here.
Louts.
Here.
Kent.
Here.
Petty.
Here.
Ellington.
Here.
Sloan.
Here.
Kierzik.
Here.
Thorough.
Here.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Need a motion to approve the previous minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Ellington, so moved.
And who was the second?
Wiedekin,
Oh.
second.
There's a motion and a second. Any corrections? Hearing none. Brenda, please call the roll.
Kierzik.
Aye.
Thorough.
Aye.
Wiedekin.
Aye.
Kolb.
Aye.
Louts.
Aye.
Kent.
Aye.
Petty.
Aye.
Ellington.
Aye.
Sloan.
Thank you. Also a motion to approve.
I didn't hear Sloan.
I'm sorry.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Also a motion to approve this evening's agenda.
Motion to approve, Petty.
Kolb, second.
Motion and a second. Brenda, please call the roll.
Thorough.
Aye.
Wiedekin.
Aye.
Kolb.
Aye.
Louts.
Aye.
Kent.
Aye.
Petty.
Aye.
Ellington.
Aye.
Sloan.
Aye.
Kierzik.
Aye.
Thank you. So we'll note that we are in compliance with the open meeting law. And presentations this evening. At first, we have an update from the Sauk County Health Department. Is anyone on the line from Sauk County Health?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. This is Tim Lother, the health officer in Sauk County.
Good evening, Tim.
Thank you, everybody, for inviting me. Happy to be here. It gives you a summary sort of where we are in terms of our cases at this point. We have, as you I'm sure have seen and maybe participated in, significantly increased the amount of testing that we are doing, trying to identify the true extent of the risk and spread of COVID around our county. We currently have 84 positive test results, and 6 of those have occurred within the last 2 weeks. Which does mean that the vast majority, 75 of those 84 positive cases, are in fact already recovered. Those 6 cases, however, in the past 2 weeks, is above our threshold of green on our dashboard, which does indicate that that is more cases than we should be having if we're trying to maintain that low incident threshold, which has been our goal all along. However, having said that, our low incident threshold would peak at 5 cases in a 2-week period of time, and so we are barely over that, but we are. Therefore, those of you who check the Sauk County website daily or weekly or however frequently for our data dashboard will see that we have made many advances in that realm. We now publicly present about a dozen indicators. And those indicators are color coded.
Tim, excuse me for a second.
Yes.
Tim, please excuse me for a second. Is someone talking with the mic on? Please mute it.
Mayor, everyone who's called in is unmiked, so I'm going to mute everyone. And then Tim, if you would hit *6 to unmute yourself.
Okay.
Thank you. Go ahead, Tim.
I don't think he's unmuted himself yet. There he goes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, excellent, great, excellent, thank you. So anyway, our dashboard indicates green, which means we are within the good range that we expect and hope to be in. Yellow is we're sort of somewhere in the middle, and of course red is a potentially risky situation. So we review this data daily, and we report on it weekly, both on our website as well as on our group emails that we send around and our open community calls that we have on Monday. And so we did talk about maintaining Sauk County as a whole in phase 1 of our reopening plan because the data indicate that is the safest move. So the first reason for that was the cases, which I described as being very slightly 6 cases instead of 5, so very slightly above what our incident threshold is. The number of tests that we're conducting, although is increasing significantly, is still not as high as the Wisconsin model indicates that we should be doing to test our spread and risk in the community, but we are closer. We are at 117 tests per day on average over the last 14 days, and our goal is 130. So again, that's not green, but it is yellow. There are a couple of metrics, however, that are in the red that do cause us some concern. The first being timeliness of lab reporting. Our goal, of course, is to make sure that at least 85% of the newly positive cases are contacted within 48 hours of the time that their test was conducted, and less than half of those are currently that's happening because of the delays in us getting the results from the labs. So we are working with the state and the labs specifically to try to speed that time up so that we can actually do the disease investigation and contact tracing that we need to do to keep this under control. So that is in the red because of those numbers. And then the last indicator that is in the red is something we call community spread, which basically our goal here is that less than 20% of our cases are not do not come from a known case. So that indicates to us that they are getting COVID somewhere else and potentially spreading or being spread around the community. And so our goal there is less than 20%. And for the last 2 weeks, we were at 33%. So that metric is red. So because of all those local metrics and some yellow metrics at the regional level, because we base our decisions primarily on local data, but we do look at and review regional data because, of course, the boundaries are blurred, and there are a couple of metrics in the regional in our regional status that are also in the yellow. So we made the decision to maintain our level at phase 1 for another week, and then on next Monday, the 15th of June, we will reassess and republicize those data and make a recommendation as to whether we as a county are ready to move into phase 2. Having said that, there are a few, depending on the type of business or activity that you run, there are a few differences between phase 1 and phase 2. The primary difference, however, is that in phase 1, like we are in now, our recommendation is that you don't gather in groups over 10 people in one confined space. In phase 2, which we hopefully will move into next week, based on the data, that number increases to 50. So larger groups can congregate together with less of a sense of risk for transmitting COVID. So we will continue to promote these issues and these messages and this data, and we'll make an announcement on Monday as to what the data show and what our recommendation for movement is. And I think that's all I have, but I'm happy to answer questions that anybody may have, however you want to do it, Mr. Mayor.
Well, thank you, Tim. Does anyone have any questions for Tim? Thank you, Tim.
Mayor,
Yep.
Mayor, this is Alderman Sloan.
Yes.
I was just curious if Tim knows why they have such a delay in getting positive test results back.
That's an excellent question, and we have certainly asked it in multiple different ways. What we are getting primarily is that they are not staffed up fast enough to actually meet the demand of the testing, and so they are rectifying that over the course of this week. They are telling us so that should be reduced as a problem. The other issue that it may potentially relate to it is that entering data into computer systems, especially if they are state-run computer systems, sometimes is a little bit more cumbersome, and it does sometimes take them a little longer than it takes us, for example, to be able to do that. But they are convinced that they can hit that 48-hour threshold, and so we're going to give them some time to figure it out, but not a lot of time. We need to get this right.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir.
Anyone else? Tim, as always, thank you again. We appreciate your updates.
Thank you, everybody. Have a safe night.
You too. Next, we have an update from Fire Chief Kevin Steve regarding our emergency services. Kevin, you have the floor.
Good evening, Mayor and all the people. I just echoed our public health officer's comments. I just want to remind everyone the individual responsibility of the 6-foot physical distancing and the face covering in public. Cover the coughs and sneezes. The groups of 10, Tim Loft talked about, making sure we're staying home when we're sick. I think he obviously covered everything as far as the Sauk County Public Health duties go. Just a couple things related to COVID-19 that's going on in Baraboo. We are working on potential testing here in town. If that comes to fruition, that will be put out in a press release via our networks here, the city website, the city Facebook pages, and then Nixle. If you're on Nixle, you probably saw that there's some community testing going on in Reedsburg happening. I think it was today. And then some more through the public health. They're looking for assistance in any way to get as many tests done as possible. So we're seeing if we can help out with that. A couple other things. As some of you are aware, we're continuing to work with the Park and Rec department. We met with them last week, specifically on the swimming pool again, and then the tournaments at Pierce Park that are coming up. And I know Thunder and the Baseball Association, the Thunder is a softball, and the Baseball Association are working diligently and lobbying for their tournaments. Obviously, we have to see what happens in the future based on the information that we receive from the public health on what our recommendation would be. I believe a special meeting of the Park and Rec Commission will be June 22nd. So we continue to monitor that and work with them. As you know, I'm assuming you saw the release on the fireworks, Festival Foods, generous donation of fireworks again here in Baraboo. No gathering forum. The fairgrounds will not be open. We obviously ask people to be cooperative and practice again social distancing. Park in legal parking stalls. Do not encroach on driveway entrances. And then if they have the urge to to buy any fireworks, just a reminder that basically anything that goes up and blows up is illegal for personal use in the state of Wisconsin. So we want to make sure everybody has an enjoyable and safe 4th of July holiday. The show this year will be more higher aerial shows as far as they can go up into 300 to almost 400 feet. They will start about 8 o'clock shooting off rounds so that people can judge the distance to make sure they can see the show from where they're located. And it should cover a pretty good radius of Baraboo. So again, we appreciate what Festival Foods has done for the community in providing that fireworks show and allowing people somewhat of a normal 4th of July, if you will. One last thing, I was asked to just brief on some library operations. Starting yesterday, they're not limiting visitors. Their visitors were down, so they allow about 40 to 45 people in the building at a time. That's their max, I guess, right now, and they're not having that many. So they're continuing to monitor it and making sure their staff stays safe. They're not accepting any book donations at this time, but hopefully by the end of the month. They're storing return library items for 3+ days to obviously make sure that they're safe, basically quarantining them. As their storage space is at a premium, they're looking at using the Dane County Title Company building, which is evidently going to be vacated later this month. So they're going to be working with the library board on using that for potential storage of donations and maybe some book sales. Other than that, that's all I have, unless you guys have any questions.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Public hearings, we have none scheduled this evening. At this point of the meeting, it's public invited to speak. Any citizen has the right to speak on any item of business that is on the agenda for council action if recognized by the presiding officer. I know we have several people on the phone tonight. Is anyone prepared to speak?
If you'd like to speak, please hit *6 to unmute yourself.
Thank you. On the mayor's business, I would like to congratulate and thank Nick Dayfield. He's a patrol officer celebrating 20 years with the city of Baraboo, and also Amanda Sable, school resource officer, again celebrating her 10th year with the city of Baraboo. Congratulations to both of you, and thank you so much for your service. Next is just an informational item. Alderpersons and department heads are requested to compete and submit their goal setting form. Due date should have been today. We need those forms filled out so that we can proceed with our goal setting discussion meeting. And I'm hoping to schedule that meeting for later in June. A lot of you have filled it out already, but there's a few outstanding yet, so thank you. On the new business resolutions. Oh, pardon me, the consent agenda. Brenda, consent.
One item, approve the accounts payable to be paid in the amount of $623,009.53.
Motion to approve, Petty.
Ellington second.
We do have a motion and a second. Brenda, please call the roll.
Weedikin.
Aye.
Kolb.
Aye.
Louts.
Aye.
Kent.
Aye.
Petty.
Aye.
Ellington.
Aye.
Sloan.
Aye.
Kierzik.
Aye.
Thorough.
Aye.
On the new business resolutions, NBR 1 is request to approve Kenny Downing's request for an excessive household animal, 3 dogs. Mark, are you taking this one?
You're muted. Muted.
Mark?
I am taking it. I just had to get my camera swung around there. What is before you this evening comes from the administrative committee. Kenny Downing, a recent addition to the city of Baraboo, moved in with more than the 2 dogs allowed per the city code and has applied for the exception. Rules of that are clearly laid out as far as the particulars of why an exception could be granted, and this case does meet that. Community service officer has delivered the appropriate notifications to all surrounding residents, none of which came to the administrative committee to voice any concern. And it comes to you from the administrative committee with a recommendation to permit.
Questions of Mark?
Ellington, I so move.
Sloan second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion? Hearing none, Brenda, please call the roll.
Kolb,
Aye.
Louts,
Aye.
Kent,
Aye.
Petty,
Aye.
Ellington,
Aye.
Sloan,
Aye.
Kiersick,
Aye.
Thorough,
Aye.
Weedikin,
Aye.
Thank you. Next is NBR2, and that's considering creating TID 10 as an overlay of TID 8, which everybody should know is the waterfront TID. Pat, you want to give some background?
Thank you,
Pat
Mayor.
Cannon?
Yeah, we're looking at a overlay, but not of the entire district at this point. Probably just the smaller area along the river on the north side and the south side. I believe Mr. Pinion does have a map that he can share showing you the area that we've laid out basically. The reason for the overlay is TIF 8 only has a short life period left. The developer of the apartment complex would like to have a pay-go incentive, economic development incentive. And to be able to afford that with enough revenue coming in, we would need to have a longer extended life, which would give us a 27-year payback. And then once that's paid back, we could also then use the revenues off this revenue stream to donate to other TIF districts that we would have created or are still open.
Are there questions of Pat?
Kolb, I have a question. Is this going to be solely applied to the property on Lynn, or is there the potential to expand 10 into other properties along the TID 8?
The original, what we're looking at, the overlay would be properties along from the potential site for the apartment complex down through the City Hall building, continuing on the south side, and then also picking up the St. Vinny's property, and then going across the river to pick up the properties along Water Street on the north side and the south side over to Oak Street.
So the answer is yes.
You can amend a TIF district 4 times. So if we do have the need to say, for example, go down South Boulevard underneath the viaduct, we would be able to do that by doing an amendment to the TIF district. It just has to be contiguous properties.
Thank you.
Any other questions of Pat?
Motion to approve, Patty.
Kolb, second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion? Brenda, please call the roll.
Louts,
Aye.
Kent,
Aye.
Petty,
Aye.
Ellington,
Aye.
Sloan,
Aye.
Kiersick,
Aye.
Thorough,
Aye.
Weedikin,
Aye.
Kolb.
Aye.
Thank you. NBR 3 is consider resuming in-person council meetings in the council chambers effective with the June 23rd, 2020 council meeting, utilizing social distancing practices. Kenny?
Thank you, Mayor. As you recall, at the May 19th council meeting, council voted to extend virtual meetings through July, the second meeting in July. Because of our adjustments we've made to COVID and socially distancing, we're asking the council to consider rescinding that order and resume in-person meetings effective at the next meeting, which would be June 23rd. We feel that because we don't have a lot of people in the audience in our council chambers right now, we could socially distance all of the council people And then at the dais, we would have myself, the mayor, Emily, and Brenda, with all of the council people sitting in the audience socially distanced. So we're asking the council to consider rescinding the previous order. We still do have access to the new code changes where if any individual council person cannot make the meeting and would like to attend virtually, they still have the option to do that, as long as they call the mayor within 24 hours of the meeting.
This was also reviewed by finance this evening and brought to council with a favorable recommendation.
Whittington, I have a couple things on that. I know the last time that we did this, we spread out. And I had a problem hearing some of these people. Not only that, we were passing a mic around, and I thought that was inappropriate because we were actually, you put one guy's face and then you put the next guy's face. That just didn't seem appropriate to me. So I think if you're going to do this, we got to be a little more careful there. If you're going to send a mic around, it you got to sanitize it as you go, I would think. But like I say, I do have a hearing problem with that, and but that's my problem. So the virus is still out there, you know, and it's things haven't changed much. And I got a problem with that because I think the people are getting more complacent, and they're getting a little bolder, and they're doing things they shouldn't be doing. So, and I'm looking for a spike down the road. I know what the county's saying and everything, but when you have these big crowds out there and they aren't paying attention to their distance and not wearing masks, that bothers me. That's my take on it.
Thank you,
Cool.
Phil.
Just a comment. I think one way to solve the microphone problem is to have a host who presents the microphone to people who want to speak, but the speakers don't have to touch the microphone. I don't know how you're going to sanitize it in between handing it off to a speaker, you know. The other concern I have is that, as Mr. Lawther indicated, is that we're still at level 1, which says congregations of no more than 10 people, and this would certainly exceed that. Or is there something that, you know, because of the size of the meeting room, that makes a difference, or what? I guess I'm unclear about that.
Well, a couple of things, Tom. Number one is governmental entities are exempt. You still need to conduct business, and obviously we can do that this way. But what we've seen in the last couple of weeks is we've had several instances where we have held meetings in the council chambers, and everybody that attended from the council side and others did practice social distancing to where, you know, we felt comfortable with it. And again, you know, if someone is very concerned about attending, we can still bring them in remotely. You know, I think that for the public also, it's a little bit more difficult perhaps being on the phone than maybe sitting in the council chambers, and the room to our benefit is rather large, and we're able to certainly seat some people in there without having them within the 6-foot limit. As far as the microphone is concerned, yeah, that's something that we'll need to work on. But you know, at this point, I know the county is meeting in their chambers, and certainly that's a lot different than ours. They got 31 people in there, but you know, without just the supervisors themselves. But I think that, you know, we could make this work coming back to meeting in person, as long as we practice social distancing. If somebody wants to wear a mask, that's certainly an option also.
Okay.
Ellington here. I think a mask would be required, and especially speaking into a communal mic. But we have a picture scheduled for that night. Is that a wise thing to have? Because that's not
I'm
space.
going to cancel that picture.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
group-
that makes sense.
A group picture, the group picture will not be done. However, we do have several alders that need to have their picture taken. We can do that.
Yeah, you could do the individuals. Yeah, I would think.
I agree.
That was my. Go ahead.
Mayor, this is Alderperson Sloan.
Yep.
Is it possible they could build plexiglass dividers between our chairs so we could each use our microphones, still be heard very well, and all sit at our chairs?
We can certainly investigate that. We haven't thought of that option. I'll look that up. I'll check.
I think that would work well. That would keep us divided from each other next to us, but still allow us to be heard and seen and look a little more operational.
I think that's a good idea, and we can certainly take a look at it. The plexiglass doesn't need to be that big. I mean, the dais itself is only 18 inches wide.
Right. Just
and all you want to do
stand
is separate it from your neighbor.
Correct.
I like that, Scott.
I'll look into that.
We will look at that.
Great.
We
Thank
got
you.
2 weeks to get it done.
So could we make a motion, this is Cole, could we make a motion that providing that we either mask up, if we resume this, if we mask up or have plexiglass dividers? I personally like the plexiglass dividers that Scott suggested. Could we make a motion, that we would do that conditioned on one of those two options?
Absolutely. Is that a motion, Mr. Cole?
Okay, I'll make that motion then.
And I'll second it.
Okay, so the motion on the floor is to resume in-council meetings effective at the 23rd of June meeting with the caveat that either masks be worn or plexiglass dividers are available between each council person. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Brenda, please call the roll.
Kent.
Aye.
Kent.
Aye.
Petty.
Aye.
Ellington.
Aye.
Sloan.
Aye.
Kierzik.
Aye.
Thorough.
Aye.
Weedigan.
Aye.
Cole.
Aye.
Wells.
Aye.
Thank you. NBR 4 is consider authorizing agreement with Paytech Hospitality Consultants Incorporated in the amount of $8,000 for a hotel study. Pat Cannon, you have the floor for the background.
Thank you, Mayor. We've been approached in the last couple of weeks by two different Midwest regional hotel chains. They're interested in looking at Baraboo for a potential hotel. But they both have said they would need to have a hotel study done. Hotel study is a little bit different than just asking what the occupancy's been and what the rates are. They look at the drivers, which would be things along the lines of businesses bringing in salespeople and those type of things, weddings, that type of things, caterers, what their businesses are, so people they can start to project out what they would need as far as the size of a hotel and then the financial feasibility of it. We decided at a staff level and with the mayor's consent that we would pay for this as a city function rather than having the potential land developer that the one person was interested in, the landowner, I should say, pay for this. This way we own the document, and if other parties wish to have it, they would be entitled to do that through the open records laws.
Are there questions of Pat?
Oh,
Pat is, sorry.
I've got a question of Pat. In the proposal, it says that they talk about an STR analysis. First of all, do we need an STR analysis? And if we do, that's going to exceed the $8,000 cost.
I can talk with the Ms. Patek if we would do that. STR is a company that tracks a lot of data. They've been doing this for several years. I haven't really asked her if we would need this at this point or not. If you wanted to amend the motion and make it for $8,500, that would allow us to have that flexibility if we needed to.
I think it's $550, Pat.
Okay, I'm sorry. You're right.
And I'm wondering too, there was another caveat in there that said if there were additional meetings that it would go at $125 per hour. So my question then becomes, should we make it something like not to exceed $9,000? And if we do, can that money still be found in the existing budget?
Yes, the fund should be available to do this. And your thought process is valid. I don't know if we would need her to come for additional meetings for us. We would probably do it remotely since she is actually in Sussex. And we'd be able to do it like we're doing tonight, with probably to the same satisfaction level. So I don't anticipate her having to come to too many meetings. But yeah, if you wanted to go ahead and make it for 9,000, that would resolve some of those issues.
Well, what I'm thinking is not to exceed 9,000.
Correct.
This is Kathleen. That same sentence said per diem, but it also said $125, which is correct. The per diem or $125 in the proposal.
I believe the per diem is $125 per day.
I think it said per hour.
It said per hour. It also said per diem. So you've got a conflict there, I think.
Yeah, a per diem is usually a flat charge
Exactly.
for an entire time versus I think it's probably an hourly rate of $125 is kind of what I was thinking at this point.
That's the way I read it also.
That was also how I interpreted that section, just that it's, if additional meetings are needed, they will be charging their regular flat rate or regular rate, which they call it per diem, but a regular rate of $125 per hour.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Pat, this is Alderman Sloan. Could you just share quickly why you chose Patek over the other two options?
Yeah, Tom Pinion and I both reviewed the proposals, and they all came recommended by one of the hotel chains. And this was what she thought was her best recommendation. And they're all three local within the state. When I did my interviews with each one of them, I felt that this was the best one to fit what we were looking for.
Okay, thank you.
Prices were almost the same for all three.
Kathleen Thoreau, are they looking at strictly hotel rooms or are they looking at meeting rooms also? Do you know?
The study will come back and tell you if you can support a meeting room. I would suspect that you would probably have in a hotel a meeting room that'll serve probably 40 to 50 people, that type of a thing. But again, the study's going to come back and be able to do that.
Okay, thank you.
It's not going to be a convention center. You're just not going to drive that type of a market.
Any other questions? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion.
I would go ahead, Mayor. This is Alderman Petty. Make a motion of a capitation of $9,000 total for the Patek hotel study.
Sloan, second.
We do have a motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion?
Cole. Pat, would then, you would be able to find out whether that additional STR study would be necessary?
Yes.
Okay,
We would sign a contract with Paytech for the $8,000. That would be our contract with them. Then if there are additional charges for the STR, or if we have to bring her down for additional meetings, that would be a separate charge.
understood. Thank you.
Okay, so there is a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, Brenda, please call the roll.
Petty,
Aye.
Ellington,
Aye.
Sloan,
Aye.
Cusick,
Aye.
Thorough,
Aye.
Weedikin,
Aye.
Cole,
Aye.
Louts,
Aye.
Kent.
Aye.
NBR 5 is considered the 2019 Compliance Maintenance Annual Report, which is also called the CMAR report. Wade or Tom, you want to give some background?
Yes, this is Wade. So this is an annual report that we submit to the Department of Natural Resources, and we bring before you. As always, we do an extremely good job and do very well with our ratings. You can see this year, for the first time in I don't know how long, we did get 1C. We had one of our test results for molybdenum level was high in our biosolids. It didn't exceed the rate, but exceeded the 80 percentile rate. So that gave us a C. Elsewise, the rest of the report was outstanding, and this was reviewed by the Public Safety Committee.
Whittington, just want to commend you as you've done a fantastic job on it. Every year, it's just outstanding.
Thank you.
I agree, Phil. Thank you.
Cole, I agree as well, but in the resolution, the explanation, the background, it says we've sampled 3 times since then and levels are back to normal. Could you describe normal?
Normal is, I don't have my actual numbers with me, but normal. So we had the one that was over 80. The rest of normal is less than 25%. So, I mean, it's significantly less.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Entertain a motion.
Sloan, motion to approve.
Cole,
Second.
We do have a motion and a second. Brenda, please call the roll.
Ellington,
Aye.
Sloan,
Aye.
Cusick,
Aye.
Thorough,
Aye.
Weedikin,
Aye.
Cole,
Aye.
Louts,
Aye.
Kent,
Aye.
Petty,
Aye.
NBR 6 is consider amending the agreement with U.S. Cellular for equipment on the Highway A water tower. Wade?
Again, yes. So U.S. Cellular has been up on our tower for a lengthy period of time, and we've had several contract renewals with them. They want to change some of the equipment up there to get themselves ready for 5G. So they have some structural changes they need to make and then change out some of their equipment. So they submitted that through their engineering firm. We hired a third-party engineering person to analyze that and review their proposed changes. They have agreed to that. They will also be on site when the construction is actually done for this project. And with that, since there'll be an additional equipment up there, they have suggested that they would increase our annual fees by $2,400. And this again did go to public safety earlier.
What's the fee going to total?
I think we'll be around 45,000.
Thank you.
Any other questions of Wade?
2,400, I'm sorry, Kolb, is that $2,400 increase adequate?
Yes. Again, they're with newer technology, they got some equipment that's coming off and some that's going on. So the actual additional number of pieces of equipment are not that much different. So it is adequate.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Need a motion?
We can approve.
A motion from Wedekind,
Second.
Second.
second from Cole. Any discussion on the motion?
I had one more question, Mayor. It's Alderman Sloan.
Go ahead.
Does US Cellular pays for all the inspection and the engineering and all that, correct?
Yes, we have a retainer from them. So all of the fees that we assume or we get through our person that does our inspection is actually reimbursed by US Cellular.
Thank you.
Anything else? We do have a motion and a second on the floor. Brenda, please call the roll.
Sloan,
Aye.
Kuzic,
Aye.
Thorough,
Aye.
Wedekind,
Aye.
Kolb,
Aye.
Clouds,
Aye.
Kent,
Aye.
Petty,
Aye.
Ellington.
Aye.
NBR 7 is consider approving the reallocation of 2020 budgeted swimming pool operational expenses for the purpose of capital improvements to the swimming pool facility. Mike Hardy, you have the floor.
All right, thank you. As you've heard, the swimming pool obviously will not be opening this season. So what the Parks Commission would like to do is to use the funds that normally would be spent on things like hiring lifeguards, ordering chemicals, that type of thing, to use towards improvements to the pool that were identified, or some of those that were identified in the pool study that was completed by MSA last year. I spoke with Cynthia to confirm that we would have up to $30,000 available by not opening the pool that could be used to start attacking some of those projects that need to be undertaken at the swimming pool. So at the June 1st commission meeting, they did recommend that I come to you and ask for the $30,000 to be reallocated for use of improvements on the pool. And we do have a special commission meeting on the 22nd to discuss other issues. But if this were approved tonight, they would be looking at a list of a menu of items that MSA has prepared with costs that would be in that $30,000 range that are needed for improvements to the pool. So this has been considered also by finance tonight and passed on to you folks for consideration.
Other questions of Mike?
Second, Plouts.
We do have a motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion? Hearing none, Brenda, please call the roll.
Kuzic,
Aye.
Thorough,
Aye.
Wedekind,
Aye.
Kolb,
Aye.
Clouds,
Aye.
Kent,
Aye.
Petty,
Aye.
Ellington,
Aye.
Sloan.
Aye.
Thank you. On to new business ordinances. We have none this evening. And next is Committee of the Whole. So the first item on the Committee of the Whole is a motion that if council wants to take action in Committee of the Whole to suspend the council rule, Section 2.04 sub 15 of the City Code as allowed by Section 2.0420 of the City Code, to allow for action to be taken within Committee of the Whole. If you would like to be able to do that, I would need a motion in a second.
Also approve, Whittington.
Second, Petty.
We do have a motion in a second. Call the roll, please.
Thorough,
Aye.
Wedekind,
Aye.
Kolb,
Aye.
Clouds,
Aye.
Kent,
Aye.
Petty,
Aye.
Ellington,
Aye.
Sloan,
Aye.
Kierzek.
Aye.
Thank you. Now we need a motion and a second to enter committee of the whole to review and discuss items related to the Baraboo District Ambulance Service, BDAS.
Motion, Petty.
Second, Cole.
Ellington, second.
We do have a motion and a second. Brenda, please call the roll.
Wedekin,
Aye.
Kolb,
Aye.
Flouts,
Aye.
Kent. Kent,
Aye.
Petty,
Aye.
Ellington,
Aye.
Sloan,
Aye.
Kierzek,
Aye.
Thorough.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, we do have several items for review and discussion this evening. We will start out first with Fire Chief Kevin Steve and Finance Director Cynthia Haggard. They are going to present a fire EMS feasibility study. Cynthia and Kevin, you have the floor. Go.
Chief Steve and I were assigned a task of putting together data to analyze the viability of the city assuming the EMS function. We completed a simplified feasibility study focusing on helping answer the essential question of should the city proceed with the proposed business venture. The chief and I started working on this project in February, which included meeting with 2 outside independent ambulance services. As part of the feasibility packet, before you tonight, we have provided information on option A and option B. Each option has its own packet. And in those packets, the packet will begin with a summary bullet point list that I created, and then it's followed by the projected income statement with revenue on one page and the expenditures on a separate page. And then we finish with an organization chart for each. I'm going to turn it over to the chief now for a little bit more detail, but I will interject as needed.
Good evening again. Everyone should have received the report in the packet. We start out with a disclaimer. We need to do more work on this feasibility study, and that's based on the level of uncertainty with the current data that we've been provided. With the recent changes at Baraboo District Ambulance Service, we'll refer to them as BDAS from this point forward, of the third-party billing company enhanced reporting capability, I think that will provide us necessary data to make a sound decision in the future. That's probably about a year's worth of data. Obviously, with COVID-19, we know the incident responses were affected, so we may have to work a few extra months to get those calls in there. So I think it's in the right direction for us to receive accurate data, but it's going to take some time to figure that out. So the staffing plan that we've developed, option A and option B, as Cynthia had stated. Option A is, well, first of all, both options include an assistant fire chief to oversee the EMS operations and the administration of the program. Option A would be a 24/7, 365 coverage, very, very similar to what's provided by BDS now with the other member municipalities participating. Includes 7 personnel on shift, including a supervisor. And that option provides the capabilities for inter-facility transfers. And keep in mind that these are now firefighter, EMT, or paramedics, so they would be answering fire responses as well, covering the majority of the incident responses that come on the fire side as well. Option B would be coverage for the city only. The staff is reduced to 5 per shift, so that's a total of 15 plus the assistant chief, so 16 new full-time staff. Obviously, you've heard it from the ambulance commissioners before on the city council that the interfacility transfers do provide a source of revenue that would be limited based on that limited staff. Both options right now do lack a contingency plan for backfilling for paid time off, vacation, sick leave, etc., because of the data that has lacked from the incident call responses. You may speak up.
They're getting a lot of feedback because of this microphone not being as good, so we're trying to just change that.
Okay, hold this one?
Please.
Okay. So I mean, there's several options for the backfill. Would be hire part-time employees, again, with the number of hours based on incident responses is needed. And then also the current staff of the fire department. There is some interest from current firefighters becoming trained, emergency medically trained. So that's always an option as well. Response area, again, the fire response area is a little bit smaller than BDAS's. They serve a couple of different towns that we do not serve in the fire response area. So it's a comparable response area. Capital assets needed. 2017 audit showed $1.5 million in equity that the city had in BDAS. That was the last audit, so obviously there's a time lag in there, and that provides uncertainty and vulnerability as well. Capital equipment, the city would need some ambulances, and obviously working through the process that's laid out in the district bylaws may be a challenge. But we estimated capital equipment money at a new ambulance rate of fully stocked between $250,000 to $300,000. Obviously with used equipment, obviously used certified equipment, it could be less expensive than that, but the budget is built with the higher dollar figure. Community partner. Obviously we have a very, very important community partner in St. Clair Hospital. That relationship is vital. Option A provides the opportunity to transport patients from St. Clair Hospital to another hospital. Option B does not. So that's obviously a challenge that we need to overcome and seriously look at if and when we move forward. The option A and working with the community partner is a win-win situation to continuously build that relationship, and also with those transfers, it is a source of revenue. So recommendations, my recommendation, ideally a fire-based EMS potentially recruits or opens up the recruiting for more personnel. Cross-trained firefighter paramedics, firefighter EMTs may open the pool of personnel recruits a larger. We're all familiar with the Baraboo area. We have Devil's Lake here that provides an opportunity for people that have an interest of getting their feet wet in specialized rescue. We have that opportunity here, so that may be a recruitment point as well between the firefighter paramedic job. As you recall, you have the letter from the city to BDS dated January 15, 2020, recommended to extend that through 2021, so information can be analyzed after we receive that updated information from the billing company and through their enhanced reporting. Just to maintain that line of communication and understand that the city is still working through that. We realize through our process, you know, Cynthia and I haven't worked in silos here. We've worked with the mayor and the city administrator working through this process, and we know that BDS Commission and the Transition Committee, which some of you are part of, have worked very, very hard on meeting the challenges that you have, and have made really good progress. We just have to make a little bit more to work together to figure out what the best option is for the city. With all that said, I would offer these recommendations, and I know it's been in a memo that you received as well, is that let's take an opportunity to expand our working relationship, if you will. 2017, we had the Fire Department Operations Report. It outlined several recommendations. Some of those dealt with improving the relationship with the emergency medical services, i.e. Baraboo District Ambulance Service. We have an opportunity in front of us. We have a large building in the old City Hall. I like to refer to it as a fire station because that's where we're located. I know it's old City Hall's in parentheses in your information there, and it kind of jabbed me a little bit, but I can live with it. We have an opportunity for BDS administrative services to almost immediately move into that building. We have space. They're more than welcome. They might have to do a little bit of cosmetic work, but other than that, it's a very, very usable, large space. That's one step to getting closer to working together. Certainly not going to proclaim to be an expert on their operations, but they have a house that they own now that potentially could be a source of revenue that could help them. Their administrative operations move into the fire station, they could sell that and potentially have a source of needed revenue. Again, I know the council has approved the bond amount for the remodel and also the work on the future EMS fire building. That remodel job includes potentially an opportunity for the entire operations of Baraboo District Ambulance Service to move into the fire station. We're working through the process now, and hopefully it all ends smoothly, working with different architects to get the best options laid out. But my confidence level is there that we can make it happen and we can move those operations under one roof. And that's obviously going to take a little bit more time, but again, it's the opportunity to begin to work together where we can help each other. And that not only takes the two services, the fire department and the ambulance district. Obviously, like I said earlier, we serve the same communities for the most part. But it's an opportunity for us, and it's also an opportunity for the city council and the BDS commission. And I know we have 4 members from the city representing, but we also have the other communities outside the city for us to work together to build a strategic plan for the future. You know, the estimate is 4 or 5 years down the road for a new EMS building. The TIF closes, I believe, in 2024. So funding may be available depending on what the whole COVID thing lays out for us. But funding may be available in 24. We have our plans pretty much all wrapped up by then. Hopefully shovel ready. Everything works out. 2025, we might be in a new building. So 2025, we end our strategic plan and we see where we're at through this journey together and working together. Again, just to highlight some of those potentials. I know I've talked about this before, but potential use of an intern program from through Madison College, not only for fire, but for EMS as well. We get those people in the door and that's potential new hires for us. And it's an opportunity to work with new people and get them exposed to the unique area of Baraboo. So like I said, the strategic process over that period of time, what does it look like in the end? Well, that's your guys' job between the city council and the Baraboo District Ambulance Service to look at what we can do together, how we can help each other out. I have a lot of ideas, but you guys obviously have to give the go-ahead to express those ideas. But in the end, is it 2 separate services like it is now in one building, continuing to work together like I hope we do in the future? Is it one service under the operation of the city? I know some may curl their nose at that, but it's something that the city started back in January that we have to seriously look at, and that's what the process of what Cynthia and I have started to do, and we need to continue to do it, as mentioned earlier. Or is it one fire EMS district that's governed by a board made up of member municipalities like it is now? So there's a lot of opportunities for us in the future. A lot of things that we can repair and improve on, and it all starts tonight. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have, and we can go from there.
Kevin, I'd like to just mention, so we have 3 items tonight. Certainly any questions that you might have for Kevin or for Cynthia at the present time concerning this presentation, let's vet those out now. But I would ask that, with your permission, that we just hold our discussion until we hear all 3 of the items, and because some questions might get answered as we go through some of the other ones, or we can vet this out completely right now. But I would prefer that we just, let's get clear with any questions that you might have for either Kevin or Cynthia on their presentation, and then we'll discuss it at the end.
Mayor, Mike Plautz here. I just had 2 quick questions for Kevin. Kevin, was one on option A, where you list 18 firefighter medics. are you talking about paramedics there? Is that what we're looking at? Or are you talking about firefighters trained?
Yeah, it would be firefighter, EMTs or paramedics. So
Okay.
we just, that's the abbreviation to keep the boxes small on the org chart. So it's
okay.
firefighter medics, okay?
And then the other one is at the bottom, option A. You said last time we looked, we had a $1.5 million equity, which could cover the 1.3 million loss in year one. Do you have any, I didn't see it, maybe I missed it, but how would we cover the loss of $1 million in year two?
I'm going to defer the financial questions to the finance director.
Okay, so I don't want you to be scared off by the negative numbers. That's why I tried to project year two. The thing that would make or break this particular scenario, A and B, are the runs. And right now we're at 1,400 runs. And so the revenue on that is quite limited. For instance, the RFP that went out was at, I think it was around 1,700. So we just don't know what the runs are. And if the runs are greater than the 1,400, well, this deal looks pretty good. We were very conservative here. And we actually relied on data that was given by the hospital on the runs. So, so it probably doesn't look as bleak as this. We need better data before we can actually have a definitive recommendation.
Thanks, Cynthia.
Kolb, I've got a comment and a question. If I understood the mayor correctly, I think what was said is that it seems to be premature at this point to decide whether we'd want an outside vendor or to take over the ambulance service ourselves. And if I combine that with what Kevin Steve said, I understood him to say that now might be an opportune time, however, to bring EMS into the fire station, at least geographically, and begin to work some compatibility between the two departments. Am I stating that correctly? Did I understand that correctly?
Certainly,
Yes,
I would. Kevin, will I don't know if you're going to go into more detail on item C, Kevin, when we get there. Yeah, Kevin explained a little bit in item A, but the part about cohabitating at the current time is separate from what option A and option B is. Option A and option B is, again, they worked at the direction of the council, where the council asked them to come up with projected costs if the city ended up running an ambulance service. And so that's what option A and option B is. The council also recommended that we solicit proposals from outside entities to see what they would charge. And that will be discussed in item B tonight. And then item C is asking the staff to start having discussions with the BDAS about sharing space in the existing fire station. And maybe making then their home that they had purchased that they used for their administrative office available as excess, and then they could dispose of that and get some funds, as well as bring their the people that are on shift into the fire station. So there's a lot to digest tonight, and again, everything's dependent on numbers, and the confidence isn't high with the numbers that we were able to put together. We think that as time goes on, especially with the outside billing agency now, we might see numbers that are broken out to a greater degree so that we can start making rational decisions. Right now, we're using gross numbers rather than broken out numbers. So I don't know if that answered your question or not, Tom, but, you know, so item A is, again, two options for the city running their own with any outside municipalities that might want to join in on that. Item 2 is just a proposal from Ryan Brothers to provide services for the city of Baraboo and any other entities that would want to become involved with that. And then option C is just having this ability to, the fire station is utilizing quite a bit of space at the old city hall, but there's a lot of space that could be utilized. And so why are we using the Alma Waite building for people when we could bring them into the fire station and utilize that space to a greater degree than it is now? We're heating the building, we're lighting the building. We've got all the services there that are needed. Is that clear as mud?
Yeah. I'm still confused. There's so much information here. I guess what I'm hearing is that given the absence of accurate data, that it would be difficult at best to make a decision on this outside of inviting, EMS into the building cohabitating.
Yeah. So based on the numbers that we have right now, I don't know that it would be prudent to make a decision on on item number A that we're discussing tonight. The report is given to you because you, the council, had directed Cynthia and Kevin to come up with what would that scenario look like. And they did that to the best of their ability, given the numbers that they had to work with. So if you want to continue down that road at some point in the future, when there's better data available, then you could direct them to do that. Or you could just say, stop now. Okay, that's on item A. We're not talking about any of the other items right now. Item B was the council directed for the city administrator to solicit outside ambulance services to take a look at what they would charge, just so we could see what that looked like. And the proposal for Bryan Brothers that's included in your packet tonight is the result of that. I think that the city administrator went out and solicited bids, and Ryan was the only one that responded. Maybe it was because of the numbers again, I don't know, but they were the only ones that provided a proposal. And then item C, again, is authorizing staff to be able to approach BDAS with the suggestion that perhaps we cohabitate at this point, utilize the same building in an effort to save money.
Okay, Mayor, this is Kathleen.
Yes.
On the proposal that was written, it says the letter to BDAS Commission dated January 15th, 2020 is still in effect and could be extended. So is that an option to extend that and also cohabit? Look at the cohabit part of it.
Yes, yeah, I mean, and again, that's the direction that we're looking for tonight. So for example, we know that the data that we've been given isn't broken out to the level that we really feel comfortable with. So if you wanted to continue down the path of taking a look at the city running a ambulance service, the recommendation from council could be that, let's extend that letter out another year until we get decent data. Yeah, I mean, you could do that. And then again, you know, you may get, if you look at item B, again, we only have one proposal, so that's usually not enough to make a decision on. So we're not expecting you to make a decision on item B because there's only one proposal. But it gives you an idea of what a outside agency would charge us. This is information.
Right.
Mr. Mayor, this is Aaron Ryan
Yes.
from Ryan Brothers. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
So I am on the phone with some of my colleagues. Will we have an opportunity to talk and go over our RFP?
I think, yes, when we get to item B, we certainly can do that.
Okay, just want to make sure. Thank you, sir.
You bet.
I think we need to get to item B. We're kind of beating a dead horse until we know all the facts.
I agree, John, but I don't want to move on until people are comfortable and feel that they have their questions answered. Anything else on A, or should we go into item B? Hearing nothing more on item A, Mr. Ryan, if
Yes, sir.
you would care to discuss your proposal?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for having Ryan Brothers on the phone tonight. I would like to ask what your preference is. Do you want me to go over the RFP? Would you like me to talk a little bit about why we chose Baraboo to put an RFP in, or how would you like me to handle that tonight?
Well, I think a little bit of what interested you about Baraboo, and then, you know, I guess I'd go over kind of the executive summary report, you know, give a snapshot of what the proposal all contains.
Yes, sir. I'll do that, Mr. Mayor. So on the phone with us tonight, I do have some of my colleagues. So I have Stephanie Bargans. She is our vice president and wearer of many hats. Our medical director, Dr. John Yost, is online. Dr. Yost has been with us for over 28 years. Stephanie's been with us over 18 years. We also have Michael Adams, who's our dispatch manager on the phone. He's been with us a little over 3 years. And then we have Cody Letson. He's one of our managers that oversees quality assurance and training. He's been with us about 8 years, and he's really involved in our Fort Atkinson operation, which is very similar to what Baraboo has in place. And so the question is, why Baraboo? So when Ryan Brothers has a potential opportunity, we look at things that align with our strategic objectives and our core values. So there's 6 questions we look at. Could everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
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 Okay. So number 1, do we have the experience and the skill set to succeed in this opportunity? Yes, we do. We've run 911 in Fort Atkinson for 18 years. And so that setup is extremely similar to Baraboo and the way that's set up. So yes, we do have that experience to successfully provide service to your community. Number 2, how would our staff at Ryan Brothers look at an opportunity like this? And would it be positive? And the answer to that is yes. So our staff at Ryan Brothers that gets to work on the 911 trucks, that's a privilege for them. So we have our best employees work there. They have to be top on their trainings. Their attendance has to be top notch. Their skill level has to be top notch, or else they don't work on the 911 rigs. Number 3 is partnerships. Do we have existing positive partnerships? The answer is yes. So we've been servicing SSM for 58 plus years. Yesterday, I actually had a meeting with the president of SSM Madison, and I know he said SSM considers Ryan Brothers a true partner. So from hearing that from him, it was great. We have a really good working relationship with MEP, which is the ER group at St. Clair. We work with them at a number of other hospitals and in other opportunities, so that's great. Number 4 on our list is community. And Ryan Brothers is actively involved in all of our communities that we have stations, whether it's an interfacility station or a 911 station. So currently we have 7 stations in 3 counties. I consider Baraboo a great combination of history and smart progressive development. And that's important for Ryan Brothers to be involved with the community like that. Number 5, what does our medical director think about the opportunity? And so when I talked to Dr. Yost about putting in a bid for Baraboo's 911, he said he was very excited about it. And, you know, Dr. Yost, I would say, is a lot like the city of Baraboo. He has history, but he's also very smart and progressive thinking in EMS, which makes a good mesh for what we could do for the city of Baraboo. So if I get to number 6, the numbers have to work. And so if 1 through 5 doesn't pass kind of our test, we never get to number 6. And I think the numbers work for the proposal that we put in for you guys for 911. So any questions on that before I kind of lead into the proposal?
Go ahead, Mr. Ryan.
Okay. So some quick history. So my father and his brother started the company in 1962. They worked day and night for years and really did the hard work to develop a reputation where you call Ryan Brothers, you can count on Ryan Brothers showing up and knowing what they're doing and providing passion and care for patients of all different levels. My brother Patrick and I came into the business in 1995 and 1997. So we've been around the company for a long time. So we've kind of taken over what our father and uncle started and kind of took it to the next level. And so with that, you know, what we're bringing to Baraboo is experience. And so being in business as long as we have to do something right to be able to continue to stay in business. And I'm going to use Fort Atkinson as a very similar, the population is similar, the call volume is similar, the makeup is similar. There's a hospital in Fort Atkinson, there's a hospital in Baraboo. So there's a lot of correlations that really make this opportunity good for Orion Brothers, and I think good for the city of Baraboo. So if you look at our proposal, you know, there's some introductory pages that talk about, you know, some of the things that I just brought up. Talks about some of our management team. I'm very hands-on as a CEO. I have the vision for the company, and, you know, the buck stops with me. And so if we're not doing something right, we got to fix it. And so that's important for you guys to know. So as we keep kind of going through some of the different topics, does anyone have questions kind of on the first, I guess, 10 or 12 pages of what we have for the RFP?
This is Kenny Downing. I have a question about the 2 options in terms of the dual purpose unit versus a regular paramedic unit. I was hoping you could explain what those were.
Yep, we can jump into that right away. So the RFP, so that's one thing is we had to answer all the questions in the RFP. So we didn't have a lot of ability to kind of go outside that. So we had to stay and answer those questions. So the initial proposal was for 2 dedicated 911 ambulances at the paramedic level, which we could definitely do. But the limitations that the RFP had is you could not do interfacility. So you couldn't provide service to the hospital with that option. The second option was 1 dedicated ambulance at the 911 level, at the paramedic level, and then having a second one that could do either interfacility transports or 911 is the model we use in Fort Atkinson, and it works really well. And based on the volume, and sure, I'm going to agree with what the fire chief said and everyone else said, that data was hard to get, but we really did our homework. And so we're confident with what our proposal is we could run starting January 1 and be very successful for you guys. But having that second model also reduces some of the overhead that you guys would pay because we have the ability to use that paramedic ambulance on 911 calls and or on interfacility. So that gets to be a multi-purpose. And with the call volume, it would work. So does that kind of give you a quick overview of that?
Well, Kenny Downey again, I'm sorry, I had one more question. So if you said you did a lot of research on our data, but let's say our data is way off and we underreported 300 to 500 runs, wouldn't you come back to the city and talk about higher charges, unexpected charges for the city?
So with our homework, we realized just because you get paged out to a 911 call and you send a service doesn't mean you bill on that, or that does not mean you transport. And so we factored that in there with some of our research. We were able to tell that you guys had a lot of no charges or no transports. And so we factored that into our cost. So with the data that we have, we're pretty confident that we are in the real close ballpark of what the true volume is. The only caveat is we didn't have data that separated city of Baraboo data from the townships. And so that's where we'd want to get a little bit better data. I know the original proposal was only for the city and that you guys would have to give us permission to do the townships. So that's where we'd have that discussion is, okay, you want us to look at the townships? Well, let's really look what that call volume is, and then we can adjust before we'd even sign the contract. Does that make sense?
It does. However, that data for each individual township may not be available a year from now because BDAS has just upgraded their reporting software and they're getting a new billing company. So I would think that a year from now, the data would be highly accurate and more reliable.
I'm comfortable that we'd be able to work that out for a January 1, 2021. The other caveat with either option 1 or option 1A, or however we want to say, so for the hospital is a huge partner in the city of Baraboo and would be a huge partnership with the Ryan Brothers providing 911 service. So if you get Ryan Brothers to do the 911, you also get our other ambulances that are in the Madison, the Dane County areas to come in and do interfacility transport. So you may pay for 1 or 2 ambulances, but now you get 3, 4, or 5 additional ambulances if the hospital needs that, because we're able to bring those resources in, and then you would not pay for those extra resources, but the hospital would get the benefit from that. And that's huge, especially where we saw some of the numbers from the chief's report about having 5 rigs. So if you're paying 2 rigs and you get 2 to 4 free for interfacility, that's definitely an opportunity to look at.
Mr. Ryan, Mike Plautz here.
Yes. Yes, sir.
I had just 2 questions that kind of go together. It kind of relates to the, I think it's the penciled in amount, 130,000 for township contributions. That's just,
yes, sir.
I'm thinking just an estimate, but the townships may likely go with an outside independent ambulance service, and we could count on that then, instead of a city-based service. But the other question I had, if we go with, and this is a question about costs, if we we go with a city-based, we have a limited amount of people in that base. Whereas you as an independent service, I wondered if you can keep costs lower because you have a larger statewide base.
Exactly. That's exactly correct. So we have other operations. So we have training, we have medical directions, we have HR. So we have all those that we're able to absorb Baraboo in versus having that just be a cost for that. So the way you propose is exactly how we can fit this in at the price range that we gave. You know, the other thing is having a larger presence. You know, we have people do interfacility, we have people do 911 in Fort Atkinson, we actually do 911 in the village of Maple Bluff. That's where the governor lives. And so you have a wide range of experiences as an EMT or a paramedic that comes, those folks come and work for Baraboo, and you get a well-rounded EMT at the different skill levels.
Thank you, sir.
John Ellington here. You mentioned something about 911 service not going to the hospital. What do you mean by that?
So let's say there's a car accident. Someone calls 911. The ambulance shows up. The car is gone. There's nobody there. Or you get on scene and the patient refuses care. I don't want to be seen. I'm fine. Don't send me in. We can't make them go in. So you would go there and you wouldn't transport. And for the most part, there wouldn't be a charge. Unless you did some type of assessment that you might charge them a small fee. That's common in EMS anywhere in the state. Another example is you get to a call and someone's already passed away. you can't charge for that. That's a DOA, dead on arrival, and you would sign off and you wouldn't transport. So that's another scenario that would happen.
Okay, thank you.
Sometimes you get several patients at a car accident and then only one person goes in, but you send 3 ambulances. Again, you're only able to bill for that one.
So I had a question about you. You said other ambulance. When I had my heart problem, there were 3 of us at the hospital and only 1 ambulance. So my wife had to be the ambulance. So what you're saying, you'd have another ambulance that could come up and get Wah and take me down to Madison.
Correct. Yes, sir. So let's say you're at St. Clair and you're in the ICU. And so you're going to go to St. Mary's Madison for a procedure. And let's say we had 2 911 trucks in the original proposal. Those rigs cannot do interfacility. So we would call an ambulance. We have a Middleton station, which is a 45-minute drive to St. Clair, non-emergent. That rig could come, or let's say it's pre-scheduled for 2 hours from now, and we send an ambulance up non-emergent. We take you, and that doesn't even bite into the Baraboo resources. That's our normal Ryan Brothers resources that get utilized, and there's no cost for that ambulance to come. We would bill your insurance just like any other ambulance service would.
Right. Okay. Yeah, because I wasn't required to be there at a certain time. I just had to go down there. Yeah. Got it. Thank you.
Yep. Perfect. Yes, sir.
Tom Cole, Mr. Ryan, does your service include the billing?
Yes, sir. We do that all in-house.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Ryan, this is Alderman Sloan. Just wondering, so if this was effective 1/1 theoretically of 2021, you give us a number for the year, and no matter if the runs are half as much, 25% more than what you thought, that's a solid number, then this gets renegotiated the next year?
The way the contract read and the way we normally do it is you do a COLA increase every year. So whatever the EPI, so let's say it's a 3% or a 2%, that gets raised for a cost of living. But yes, we're set with those prices for the next 5 years, per what the contract language read in the RFP.
Okay, so it doesn't matter if things were not, if you misjudged what the numbers were, that's on you, not, it doesn't get billed back to us anyhow.
Correct. And a good example with that is for me, as far as our operations, the worst thing I could do is to jump into an opportunity and not know what I'm doing, and then jeopardize my whole operation because I underbid a project in Baraboo because I wanted the business. The flip side is I'd enter into something like that if I had a good handle on what I thought the volume really was, especially with the hospital revenue. And then that makes a good opportunity for Ryan Brothers to expand into another territory, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so so we would have a fixed number that we know is not going to change versus if we run our own, we're kind of at the mercy of what happens.
Correct. There would be an annual COLA increase every year for the contract, which again, it would be a number we'd all agree on, and that's
right, tied to some factor.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, thank you much.
Mr. Ryan, this is Alderman Petty speaking. I'm just curious, is typically the length of your contractual agreements with municipalities for a calendar year, 2 years? You mentioned somewhere in there about 5 years. So what's the typical length of a contract you have with municipalities?
So the 5-year I mentioned was in the RFP language. So that's where I got that from for Baraboo. The one for Fort Atkinson started out as a 3-year contract. And then every successful year, they rolled on another year. So we were always kind of 4 years out. So we've been into that contract for 18 years right now. Our contract with the Village of Maple Bluff started in 2011. And then I think we started out with a 2-year contract. And that's a little bit of a different contract just because it's a smaller community and we kind of run that differently. However, we've been contracted with them since 2011, so they keep adding on additional years after a successful year.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
My
Mr. Ryan,
justification,
I'll wait.
my justification for putting the 5 years is because we're in the middle of considering building a new fire station. And my thought was you wouldn't want to start something, have a new fire station, and then have to start something else. So I wanted to try to schedule them so both end and begin at the same time. And that would also give us enough experience with the private company, if you chose to do this, to see if we really wanted to continue down this route or 5 years from now form our own fire department or EMS department.
All right, thank you, Kenny.
Mr. Ryan, this is the mayor. You had mentioned the model that you use in Fort Atkinson being kind of a rolling 3-year versus what we asked for, which was the 5. My question to you is, if you were to do something similar for Baraboo, the rolling 3-year versus the 5, do you anticipate that that might change the numbers, either positive or negative?
So that rolling 3, so we started that in 2002. And so that was a good measure back then. And with that rolling through, it worked for them. With Baraboo, the 5-year definitely is something that I think shows our commitment that we're going to be there for you guys. And there are a lot of changes and there are a lot of uncertainties. I think that would help make us a little more solidified commitment with that 5-year. When you start to go lower, different things come up. And so the cost does go up if you do shorten that up, because we still have to have the commitments for our ambulances, our staff. And so if that's a shorter time frame, that can change pricing.
Yeah, and that's what I anticipated. I just wanted to get that clearly stated. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Ryan, I had one other question. Mike Ploutz here. We have an outside billing now, and that costs about, I think our costs now are about $30 a person. And I looked at your proposal, our cost would be about $36 per person. Does that amount include the billing, and then we could save money because we wouldn't need the outside billing service?
So I'm gonna let me think about this. So that number per person is something that I believe City of Baraboo puts on. We don't put $1 per head. That's kind of something that we gathered out of the information when we did our homework.
Mm-hmm.
So we're a turnkey service. So the contract that we signed for, we provide everything. The only exceptions would be fire services. So, and again, one of our first priorities, if we got this contract, would be to build a relationship with the fire department and train with the fire department. That's huge to be successful, especially for a private service. But if there's a car accident, I'm assuming we'd work together and we'd be able to utilize that resource. If there's a pulseless non-breather, I'm assuming there's some things that we'd work together, and those would be established, I would assume, in advance. But being turnkey, you pay us every month and we take care of everything. And so what I said earlier, where the buck stops with me, those are my problems. If someone calls in, that's my problem to get that shift filled. If a rig goes down, that's my problem to get another rig. And so everything is taken care of by me and our company.
So that $431,621 estimate that you gave us, that includes the billing then?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Okay.
And again, I'm not going to take credit for everything. My management team is phenomenal, and they pick up different areas. Each manager has an area where they'll look at and they'll specialize in. So again, I know I'm saying me a lot, but it's really a huge group of people that make Ryan Brothers successful. So I don't want to take credit for everything.
What about continuation? You've been around for a long time and you have a lot of experience, and that means retirement. What coming up? Where are we there?
Could you phrase that a little differently? I'm not sure if I understand.
Sure. John Ellington again. I'm just wondering about continuation, business continuation, with the experience that you have and the amount of experience that you have personally. Mm-hmm. You've been around a long time. You got people retiring, and just what kind of continuation do we have there?
Well, I'm a young guy. I'm a second generation owner. And so
Right.
the second generation, from what I learned, can either make or break, and they usually break the company, and we're still in business. So I'm around for a long time, sir.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for doing that.
This is Tom Cole. I'm having difficulty putting together, option 1 and option 1A because I don't know how many dedicated paramedic units for 911 and dual purpose units we have in the city of Baraboo. So it's hard to compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges. Could somebody from the city perhaps enlighten me as to the number of units we currently have so that we have something to compare it to?
I do. Kevin and I had discussions with comparable ambulance services, and based on our population, they estimated between 2 ambulances running regular runs and then a third as a backup in case one of the ambulances breaks down. Of course, BDAS has a fleet of ambulances and they all don't belong to the city and they're all not dedicated to city services. I believe they have over 10 ambulances. So if your question is how many are utilized in Baraboo, there's usually 2 from my understanding, unless someone from BDS wants to correct me. And then they use the other ambulances for the other agencies and then to do the transports.
And are those paramedic units? Or are they dual purpose units?
It's my understanding they should be paramedic units.
Anybody from the ambulance commission have a different answer to that, or?
Yeah, Tom, this is Joel Petty speaking. They typically have 5 ambulances accessible and available for runs. Now that can be division of 911, transports, whatever have you. So typically, usually, because it came up one time at a meeting, like how many accessible ambulances are available if necessary. And for some reason, the number in my head sticks that 5 are accessible, 5 are available if needed. If it gets beyond that, because sometimes the business just really varies, the call volume can vary significantly. If it gets usually up beyond that, then they're looking at mutual aid. Other ambulances are going to probably have to do the runs and stuff. There's just so many buses, so many staff, too many people, that kind of a thing. So that's
So the question, Joel, is the 5 that are available, that would include any ambulances that would be doing either transfers then down to St. Mary's or someplace.
That's correct, Mayor. It's actually a combination of it. They actually would be a combination of accessibility for 911, but also scheduled transfers. You're correct.
Okay, so in Mr. Ryan's proposal, he's stating that the transfers would be done with his ambulances, but not the ones from here. In other words, they'd be coming up from somewhere, unless it was an emergency. And then
So,
we got
Mr. Mayor,
flights anyway.
Yep, 2 things, if I mind, if you're okay if I interject.
Yeah.
So the option 1 is 2 dedicated ambulances. They can only do 911. That would be what the city of Baraboo requested, and we could not do interfacility. There's a higher price to that because those rigs are set and can only do 911. So if there's no 911 calls that come in, they sit. The second option is that one 911 truck can only do 911, and then the second truck could either do an interfacility or could do a 911 call. So let's say an interfacility comes in and there's a cardiac patient at St. Clair's ER and they need to go to Divine Savior. And that second rig could then do that. We'll be at the hospital in 5 minutes. We'll get them transported to Portage, and then we come back. Let's say we came back and a 911 call came in. Well, the first rig would take that. Let's say a second one came in. That rig could then still respond because they're cleared from the hospital and they're back in the area. That's how that second scenario would work. If the city chose the first option and it's the 2 dedicated rigs, then if an interfacility call came in, initially with the first year of the contract, we would have to send an ambulance from the Madison area. After we got through year 1, if we had that option, we would look at maybe bringing a second and third rig up just for interfacility based on what the actual call volume winds up being. But that's something that would be probably, and again, that would not be an additional cost to the city. That would be something Ryan Brothers would decide to do.
Mayor, this is Joel Petty again. Just another point just to add, and I just thought of it. I know that sometimes too, when additional runs come in, that actually with BDS, the administrative staff are all paramedics, that they actually cover some of them runs themselves. And I forgot to mention that when Alderman Kolb asked his question. So I just want to add that information.
Thank you.
And this is Alderman Sloan. The other thing hard to compare apples to apples is right now it's Baraboo District. So they are serving a large geographical area, whereas what we're looking at here is just city of Baraboo.
Right.
So there really aren't.
If you wouldn't mind me interjection.
Please.
So yeah, I think what you said, we're not comparing to apples, and so with the first proposal from the fire department, that's the same thing, and same thing with the Baraboo EMS. You're looking at 3 different systems, and no one's looking at it from the same lens. So again, we could only do what the RFP asked for, and so that's what we have to respond to. So some of the different things is, yes, we'd like to service the townships if the city would let us, and so if we're looking at the city of Baraboo, that's a little over 7 square miles. 2 rigs should be able to handle that, no problem. That's probably too many rigs for that. Now, if you bring in the townships, then you want 2 rigs because now you're going to be farther out and your responses are going to be longer. But that's still doable with 2 rigs. Very similar to Fort Atkinson. So in Fort Atkinson, some of our normal drive time for responses is 15 minutes. That's how far that township is away from where we're at. But that's when they're in the township.
So if the city of Baraboo allows you to do the other areas, do you just decrease the bid to the city, or how does that affect our pricing?
You would still get charged the same, but then the townships would kick in their per head. And I think what we saw was something like about $130,000 that the townships pay now for their 911 service. So that would get added on top, but it wouldn't cost the city anymore. You would just allow that resource to be utilized by someone else. And to be honest with you, that's somewhat similar to what we do in Fort. Fort actually takes care of the finances for the townships. They just allow us to do that. Fort pays us, and then the townships reimburse Fort Atkinson. But they allow us to go do exactly what that scenario is.
Okay, so that's obviously something we'd have to work out at contract negotiation time.
Right, and the city of Baraboo would be our boss if they're bringing us, and they would say, yes, you can do that, or no, you can't. So that would definitely be a mutual conversation. But if the city said, no, you can't do that, then the city's our boss, so to speak.
Thank you.
And in the RFP, I did put language in there that said if the city allowed other member agencies to join this contract, would Ryan Brothers be willing to accept that? And they did say yes. So if the council elected to go that route, I don't think it would be difficult for Ryan Brothers to accommodate the other agencies.
Yes, ma'am, you're correct on that from Ryan Brothers.
Mr. Mayor, this is John Rago from Baraboo Ambulance. Can I make a comment along with Councilman Petty? Ryan Brothers, very fine service. We've worked with them for many, many years now. But St. Clair generally will not wait 45 minutes for an ambulance to respond for an interfacility transport, which is one of our challenges and the reason why we have currently 4 to 5 ambulance staffed every day. So our fleet currently is down to 8 rigs because we didn't need some of the extra large rigs that we were using for bariatrics. We've got the new bariatrics, so we don't need to do that. But anything that the city would like to ask as far as how our staffing is, we're certainly available. Troy Snow and Betsy, our management team, will be more than happy to answer those questions.
Thank you, John. Does any Anybody else have any questions concerning item B, which is the Ryan proposal?
John Ellington here. I want to thank Ryan for their proposal, and sorry that there's such a mess that we can't make it specific information.
Thank you, John.
No problem. I appreciate you saying that. One more quick thing is data is king for Ryan Brothers. We live on data. And so if we were brought in as your provider, we would be giving you data every month, and anything and everything you want for data, we provide for you. We've really invested in technology a number of years ago, because that's how we decide how we're going to run our business or where we're going to go and who we do business with is the data we can, and we're very transparent with our data. And so you guys would have that, whether it's the board, whether it's the mayor, whether it's the city administrator, we'd share all that with you guys.
Thank you. Okay, is council ready to move on to item letter C? Not hearing any objections. Kevin, you expounded a little bit when you were talking concerning the fire EMS feasibility study. Is there anything that you would care to add concerning item C on the committee of the whole?
No, I think I covered most of it in the first item A. The opportunity to work with BDS moving forward to analyze data further, to look at operational procedures, common operating procedures, as well as not only answering calls together, how we can help each other out. And I'll just give you an example of that is that a service to the north of us, they're paramedics that are currently firefighters, and I don't want to shock anybody, but I'm sure Chief Rago knows about this. But service to the north of us, they just issued their paramedics that are trained firefighters firefighting gear, and they have allowed them to actively participate in outside firefighting. So they're not going into the environment where they need to wear an SCBA, because that obviously provides more exposure, if you will, and some more training and equipment and things like that. So they've operated on a fire scene or two already. Is that something we can do in Baraboo? Absolutely. It's limited by our imagination and limited by what the policymakers you decide to do. But in today's age of limiting staff, people calling in sick, or whatever you have, we could do that. And this is an opportunity that I see moving forward to look at some of those options, especially if we share a building now and into the future.
Are there any questions of Kevin concerning the discussion perhaps that you might authorize tonight with BDAS to talk about the idea of cohabitation?
Mayor, this is John Rago again, Baraboo Ambulance.
Yes.
I think that with the comments that have been made by Kevin, I don't see any issues with them at all. Having been a member, or still am a member of Baraboo District Fire Service, so I don't see a problem with us working together. And with our commission's permission, I'll be more than happy to work with him towards whatever mutual agreement and lodging that we can establish. But it's just a matter of sitting down and talking through it all. And again, having the permission of our commission to do so.
I appreciate that, John. Thank you. It's good. It's good to hear that.
Tom.
Mayor,
Yes,
Alderman Sloan, is there a large investment in making it usable for BDAS to occupy the fire station? I'm just thinking if there's a large investment up front to do this, and let's say we decide to go to a private service in the near future, we've pretty much thrown that money away to make bunk areas et cetera, for them without knowing where we're really going.
That's a consideration. Kevin, I know that with the funding that was approved this year, was that one of the items that you were researching as something that would be done to the fire station?
Yeah, that's a work in progress. And I haven't examined the proposal that the Ryan brothers, but just speaking to that, I'm assuming, were they going to use our facilities? Is that in that proposal? I guess I didn't read that thoroughly enough to understand that. But if that's the case, that facility would still be used. They could cohabitate in the fire station. If you would go to a private service, because they would need that type of facility as well, because they provide the 24-hour coverage. And again, as Mr. Ryan stated, he'd be working with the fire department and different operational aspects as well. So even though they're a private service, I know in some parts of Illinois, they do that where they cohabitate with the fire department.
The rent for Alma, I'm sorry. The rent for Alma Wait was included in Ryan Brothers' proposal. So as Kevin said, I'm assuming they would probably be able to work with us with the old City Hall. Now, if you recall, when Kevin asked for funding for remodel of the old City Hall, he justified it with utilization of sleeping quarters, so that if none of these options happen and we stay status quo for the next 5 years, Kevin would have the ability to house his on-call firefighters there, volunteers, interns. So all of those improvements are definitely going to have a benefit to the fire department long-term. And that's part of the bond of those old City Hall renovations.
Thank you.
It's a very good question, though. So whether it would be BDAS or our own people or Ryan Brothers, somebody would need to have a place to stay. And so we can make that space available in the building that we're already heating the whole building and, running the lights in the whole building. Any other questions? Okay. So because you took the action way at the beginning of the committee of the whole, we can give direction in committee of the whole to staff as to how to proceed. We could also, if it's so desired, go into a closed session if people are more comfortable with that, to discuss everything that was put before you tonight. I'm open to either. We've got the ability to have a discussion and give direction if further direction is necessary, to, for example, give city staff the ability to approach the Baraboo District Ambulance Service, to have discussions about cohabitating in the building. You can certainly give that direction in open session. You could do it in closed, either way, but certainly in open session. The Ryan contract could be something that could be discussed in closed session, because it would be obviously something that is a contract that would be investing public funds, so we could do that in closed if you're so inclined.
Mayor, this is Alderman Petty speaking.
Yep.
In regard to some direction, I guess I'd like to just speak, I don't know, some feedback. Somebody's got their mic unmuted. Anyway, I'm part of the transition committee for Baraboo District Ambulance, and obviously the representative for the city of Baraboo. Many of the topics and issues in regards to shared building space, sharing other services, cost improvements are part of what the transition committee is already exploring and doing. So I guess if I needed the Common Council's approval, I sort of just took it upon myself. It seemed reasonable to go ahead and pursue those types of options along with the other members of the transition committee. it would be my opinion that there is quite a bit of action taken by the transition committee and continue to do so. And just like Chief Steve had stated and the finance directors, that we have very limited data to really make any decisions of any type, in my opinion. So it would be my recommendation to the Common Council to allow the Baraboo District Ambulance Commission, the Transition Committee, to continue to work toward looking at these sorts of different options for the city. Now, one of the things that BDAS is looking at right now is a financial feasibility study to look at the cost effectiveness of potentially sharing space in the fire station. Also looking at the possibility of dovetailing on the city's phone system. We're looking at that. We're looking at the potential of looking at IT services like the city does, like contracting through the county. So all those sorts of things are works in progress. No definitive decisions have been made, but they're all works in progress at the same time. So I just wanted yourself, the administrative staff, as well as the Common Council members, to know that those things are already in discussion. And where they'll end up, I don't know, to be quite honest, but they're on the table and looking at a lot of options. And again, the most cost-effective options, not only for the city of Baraboo, but also all our partners in the rural district too, as well as running the Baraboo District Ambulance Service in a at a level where it can obtain and maintain financial stability. So I'm like Chief Steve. The model down the road could be a couple different models. It could be one with a commission. It could be one under the city. It could be combined firefighter, paramedics. I'm not certain where that is down the road, but it's certainly things that should be and looked at and explored, but it is going to take some time. So that's just a few comments I wanted to make. Thank you, Mayor.
Well, and again, Joel, I think what we're looking for tonight would be a direction from council to continue along that line.
Well, and I guess, Mayor, that would be my recommendation to the Common Council, to allow the city staff, allow myself as their representative. They got 3 other representatives on the BDAS commission. I'm not the only person speaking there, but I am a member of the transition committee and do represent the city on that.
Can we go ahead?
I have to agree with Joe 100%. I think we're premature on this. We got all this going with the committees and everything, and see where that leads us with the BDS the way it is right now. We start making changes there and see where we come out. I also think that we should be looking at space over there for them because they're interested in that. And I think there's a way to save money there, even in the interim. So I think those 2 items is very important. Other than that, I think these other options are just premature. You can look at them, but I don't know you can do any action on it until we find out where the BDS is going right now. So,
can we make a motion? This is Kathleen. Can we make a motion in the committee of the whole, or do we have to go back to the floor?
You should be able to
From what I
make a motion.
understand, we can take an action in committee of the whole because you suspended the rules. Is that correct, Emily?
That is correct. Yes, that was the action that was taken prior to entering committee of the whole.
So the answer to your question, Kathleen, is yes.
Okay.
You could entertain a motion.
Okay, I would like to make a motion that we continue the letter of January 15th, 2020 to July 1st, 2021, and that they do go ahead with the looking at combining and moving the BDAs into the fire station.
Okay, so Kathleen has made a motion. Is there a second on that motion? Motion dies for a second. Okay, continuing on, is there any formal direction that anyone would like to propose?
Is Ryan still on? Is Ryan still on the phone? I had one question for them if they're still on the phone. No. Personally, I'm tired of this. We had a commission that that was running a service, and we got in a mess. And I don't understand why we keep messing with the mess.
Well, in all honesty, though, John, there's been some substantial changes made to that.
Well, I know there's been substantial changes, but now we're going for another year. I'm fed up with the whole thing. We had a study in 13, and I went through that study that was done in 13 and compared that to what they did with the audit, and the study we did in 13 was completely, well, not completely, mostly ignored. And so why are we doing more study of something that's broken? That's my 2 cents.
Whitney here. They are doing a lot of things though that they should have been doing a long time ago. They got to rein themselves in to start with. They got too much equipment over there. They got too many people over there, and they're expanded too far. And we got to bring all that in. But once we do that, and we find out whether it's feasible or not to farm out our building, it could work. But I still think that's an opportunity that we should look into. We're working on it. It's going to take a little bit of time, but it could be the best option in the long run.
Well, I also feel like our
from
responsibility is to the city of Baraboo. It's not to the Baraboo District Ambulance or the other townships. It's really to the city. I think you have to look at that private service with a fixed cost, a fixed known cost, as a real option where you don't.
And a history.
Yeah, if the other communities want to join in, that's on them. We're in charge of the city of Baraboo. We're not in charge of anybody else.
The question I didn't get to answer is what they're going to do with they said they will be interviewing all the present employees. I'm assuming that's for hiring. So.
I mean, that's where your pool of employees is going to come from. It's from the local area.
Yeah, exactly.
Obviously, the ones that just lost their job at BDAS would be the first ones to be looked at as hires, I would assume.
Right.
I'm not putting words in their mouth, but I would guess that's how that would work.
I wanted to ask that question and I missed it.
Yeah. Mr. Ryan, are you still on the phone? Is not, but we could certainly circle back on that.
Yeah, ask the question. I'm personally tired of the Baraboo ambulance and all the work that Cynthia and Kevin had to do, and now the commission's working to do it. We have other
and maybe
things.
this should be a closed session where, because we're going to rankle some feathers here, but.
And if somebody asked for a closed session, I would certainly make that consideration.
I would make
somebody want a closed session?
Okay,
Okay,
make that motion.
Second.
Okay, well, first of all, what we need to do is move out of the committee of the whole.
I move out of the committee of the whole.
If I may, you can actually go into closed session within committee of the whole. I would suggest that council treat committee of the whole just like a regular committee, and regular committees can go into closed session. Going into closed session does require a legitimate reason, though, of course. A legitimate reason could be discussing the contractual relationship that the city has with BDAS.
I would make that motion.
And I'll second it.
Okay, so at this point, we'd be going into a closed session. My suggestion is, depending on what your feelings are, that the city administrator, the city clerk, the city finance director, the city attorney, the police chief and the fire chief also attend that closed session? Or are you feeling that you just want to have this discussion on?
Fine with me. Fine with the second.
And Mr. Mayor, Aaron Ryan, I'm still on the line. I couldn't get unmuted. Sorry about that.
Okay, so, well, the trouble is now we have a motion on the floor in a second. Geez, Emily, I'm looking for direction here. I don't know that we can hear him at this point.
frankly, my suggestion would be to not, since there is a motion and a second on the floor.
Yeah.
The
Mr.
other
Ryan, we're gonna
suggestion,
have to get back to you, I guess.
Unless-
There
I
was
mean,
a
you can
motion and a
always
second
allow-
to go to closed.
Mr. Mayor, you do have the discretion of allowing anybody you want into a closed session.
Yes, and seeing
don't
that
know
there
if
is a contract proposal from Ryan Brothers, do you want them included in the closed session?
This is Alderman Petty speaking. I would not like them involved in the closed session simply because we're going to be talking about primarily issues with BDAS that I think are going to be personnel issues that are privy to privacy. So I would recommend Ryan be off the line during closed session.
I agree with Joel.
Well, hold on a minute. We've had a motion and a second to go into closed session, and we've never
Yep.
voted on it. So if we don't vote on it, we can keep the session open and invite Mr. Ryan to continue discussion, correct, Emily?
Right now, there's a motion on the floor. You can discuss the motion, and if the motion fails, maybe you want to stay in open session, get additional dialogue or feedback from Ryan Brothers, and then make another motion to go into closed session. That would certainly be an option.
But we do have a motion and a second on the floor. The other thing that can be done is the motion and the second withdraw their motion and second. Would that also be available to us, Emily?
My suggestion per Robert's rules is to vote on the motion. It can certainly be made again.
Yeah, I know where you're going. So if you wanted to have continued conversation at this point, there's a motion and a second on the floor to go into closed session with the addition of the city administrator, the city clerk, the city finance director, the city attorney, the fire chief, and the police chief present. And if you vote on that and the motion fails, then we would stay in open session for now, and then we could solicit additional questions and comments in open session, and then you could, at that point, go into a closed session if you were comfortable with the answers that you got. It's gotten a little convoluted.
Is all of this over one question? I think we only have one question for him. I don't think it matters, truthfully, but I don't know. I'm not withdrawing my motion.
Pardon me?
I'm
Couldn't
not
hear.
going to withdraw my motion.
Did I hear you
I'm
withdrawing
not
the
withdrawing
motion?
my motion.
Boy, I'm just having a hard time hearing you, Scott. You are or are not? I couldn't hear.
He said he withdrawing his motion, and I'll withdraw my second.
So that's not a
Not legal,
permissible.
though.
No,
have
you
to-
have to
I'm
vote
not
on the-
withdrawing my motion. I just want to vote on it.
We need to vote. So if everybody understands this, there's a motion on the floor to go to closed session. This is why it's better to be. There's a motion on the floor to go into closed session with the people that were listed. You would vote on that motion. If it passes, we go into closed session. If it fails, we'll stay in open session. Is that understood by everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the motion is to go into closed session to deliberate our BDAS contract and anything else that would be pertinent to that. So I am going to ask for the roll to be called. Brenda?
Hold.
Yes.
Klaus.
No.
Kent.
Yes.
Petty.
Yes.
Ellington.
No.
Sloan.
Yes.
Kierzik.
Yes.
Thorough.
Yes.
Weedigan.
Yes.
The motion passes 7-2. We will go into closed session. So the way we're going to do this is there is a separate meeting set up for us to be able to access that. So again, it will be all the alders, plus the city administrator, the city clerk, the finance director, the city attorney, the fire chief, and the police chief. So we will adjourn off of this call. You will go into the second call, which is the closed session. We'll do that in 5 minutes. We'll give you 5 minutes. All right, so I'm getting off the call now.
Okay.